there's been times where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't start something, and then I do, and it's the best thing I've made in like months.
Welcome to the Mpower podcast. My name is Brendan Sika, and I'm joined by my guest here today, Kevin McCarthy, aka Nichemode. How's it going, man?
It's going great. Thank you for having me. Honored to be here.
Well, good, man. I'm glad you can make it out. So, you're an engineer, producer. Where did you find your lane? What made you get into this field?
Well, I think my first kind of go at any type of music production, it was back when I was in high school. I believe I pirated FL Studio.
Okay.
Which is
The
kind of the
works,
classic
yeah.
lane. That's like kind of what everybody does. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just kind of messing around with it for a bit. I feel like I wasn't even looking up tutorials. I was just kind of trying to figure it out. But I had kind of fallen in love with like sample-based hip hop, and that was kind of the sound I was going for. So I was doing a lot of like,
And when you say sample based, do you mean like a specific era?
I guess I should say like earlier Kanye and like Jay-Z type stuff. Like that
Okay,
was
so like the
that type of
Chipmunk Soul.
sound. Yeah, the Chipmunk Soul stuff. Like I was really into that. So I was kind of trying to make some stuff like that, and it just wasn't really going like as I had hoped. Because like I said, I wasn't really like doing the research that I should have been doing, and I was just kind of trying to figure it out. So I feel like I took kind of a step back from that for a little bit, and I play guitar too, and I had been playing guitar for a few years. So from there, I kind of started focusing a little bit more on guitar-based music,
Right.
and I was very lucky. My dad plays guitar, and so music's been around like my whole life. But around the time I was in high school, he got into a little bit of recording on his own. So we had a MacBook, and
Did you use FL too?
no, we did not use FL. I think it was just GarageBand back then, maybe a really old version of Logic. But yeah, so he got like an interface and some speakers, very basic setup. But I kind of got more into recording like guitar based music
Right.
on my own and with bands that I was in at the time. And I feel like it was something about the like okay, I can record a guitar part, and then I can record another guitar part over it, and then another guitar part, and then bass to it. And it was like being able to take all the ideas that I had just like on my own at one at a time, and being able to do it all at once and really hear it come together. It was kind of like, that's where I like fell in love with the idea of like just recording music, the whole creative process behind that, more so than just songwriting, like actually the recording and like the creation.
Like you actually want to
process.
help make the music as well, like be behind the scenes at the same time.
Yeah, because once you start messing around with stuff, you're like, oh, this makes this sound like this, and it's just like an endless, you can just dive into it forever.
Right,
And
because that becomes part of like the music making process too. It becomes like part of the instrument. Like if you add like a phaser,
Mhm.
like within the DAW or whatever.
Yeah, definitely with like, my effects background, I suppose, is a little bit more, comes from like guitar pedals.
Exactly.
So I feel like when I was even getting into like mixing effects, I
Or
was
amp presets too.
yeah, amp preset stuff. Like I was just thinking about it from like guitar pedal type, type, that was kind of like how my mind, like my flow was like mentally just thinking about it. But
So when you say the band though, was there a genre that you guys started with, or were you just like throwing stuff together that sounded good?
I just had a couple friends. We were just like, let's go in my basement and let's just make some music. We would just kind of jam it out. I was in a ska band at one point
Okay.
in high school, so that was obviously very specific.
Do you wear the checkered?
That was no, we
Not like
didn't.
that
I
wave?
think our guitar player might have had a checkered strap on his guitar. I have to double check with him. But no, we weren't like rocking the suits and the ties and all that. I wish.
Fair.
But we did record like one ska song.
Then what did it go to afterwards?
After that, well, I just kind of was doing more like indie rock type stuff, which is kind of just more what I was listening to at that time than hip hop. So that was just, kind of what was in my head, kind of.
And you would fluctuate between genres too, like that?
Not so frequently. I feel like even now, I kind of go back and forth. I'll go through phases, and I'll do like, I don't know, for 6 months to a year, I'll be really into like making hip hop, and then for the next large chunk of time, I'll just want to make guitar-based music and like indie rock type stuff.
But it comes in seasons,
Yeah, because I feel like I just, after a while, I just get burnt out on a certain type of song, and like especially creatively. as well as like listening to music. You know, it's good to always listen to new stuff. But creatively, I feel like I just get into like ruts where I'm doing the same thing, and that's just like, all right, it's time to kind of try something new for a bit.
I feel that sometimes I'll go through an ambient phase, or sometimes I'll try like lo-fi.
Hmm.
Yeah, it'll sometimes vary, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. Or just even if you're making the same thing, going about it in a different fashion, you know, can really take you to
Yeah,
places that you never
like
expected.
changing the BPM or adding a new effect to it, like chopped and screwed.
Hmm.
You know, I actually did that some old beats, and I'd put it through like that kind of lens creatively, and just
Hmm.
make chopped and screwed. Sometimes something you have lean to. But when you say hip hop production, and you mentioned Kanye, was that the main inspiration to get you behind just beat production, or was there a mentor or a specific musician?
No, I feel like it was pretty much like I said, I was trying to figure it out on my own. Um, so I kind of just heard stuff that I liked. I had the musical background already because I had like taken piano lessons when I was young, so I like understood basic like music, not even theory, but like okay, there's four beats in a 4/4. You know, like
Exactly.
I know how to structure a
The
song
math
and
part
like
of it.
the math part of it to some degree. You know, because I understood like sheet music and stuff. So I was like, all right, if I can understand it on paper, I could probably understand it on a computer.
I envy that too because I used to learn from tablature and not sheet music. So where did you
With
get your
guitar,
start in that?
that is what I ended up doing. I'm only now kind of getting into like reading sheet music on guitar because I started just like learning songs that I liked. And then from there eventually you're like, "Oh, I keep seeing this pop up. That's a G major. Okay, now I know what that is." You know, and like eventually you start picking up patterns and then, you know, you figure out how to incorporate it into your own music. Uh, but only recently I'm kind of like starting over a little bit with guitar and like really trying to understand the instrument more of like, you know, just the way the fretboard's all laid out, like knowing all the notes and what they're called and being able to do it quickly without thinking about it too much.
Just make it streamline.
Yeah, and I guess because I've been learning more or trying to kind of expand my like knowledge on things like jazz and more complicated like extension chords. So, you know, you kind of have to know the numbers again, like you said, the math of certain things to be able to look at it and be like, okay, that's an 11th or whatever, you know.
See, I couldn't even get into that, like into the weeds of music theory with chords.
When I was studying it in school, I despised it. And it wasn't until I actually like wanted to use it practically for myself where I was like, okay, let me sit back and try to understand this in a way that makes sense to me. And that just happens to be on the fretboard of a guitar as opposed to on sheet music.
And side note, skipping back to what you said, when you said you're playing guitar more recently, do you incorporate that in your recording sessions as an engineer?
Yeah, yeah, I've brought in my guitar a few times. Electric and acoustic guitar for different types of things. You know, we've recently we took a song that like somebody had written, or I guess they had written the song already to a beat that they got from somewhere, and we kind of like redid it as like an acoustic version, which was cool. You know, I've put some guitar solos on some stuff here and there.
Like as a bridge or like underneath bars of like lyrics?
Both,
Okay.
both, yeah. Some, you know, solos or even like some like chugging chord type stuff to kind of like give it a little bit extra momentum. That it's just another tool, you know. And I don't know. I'm at this point. I feel like I can use it pretty quickly, and like that's why I like. It's good for in a session where you have limited time.
Yeah.
Where it's like on a keyboard, sometimes I'm like messing around with for too long and like,
See, that's one thing
what do I do?
I've noticed that about guitar after playing since I was like 9. It's very finite in its tones and like what you're able to do with it versus like wavetable synthesis or any kind of like plug-in on a computer. So you know you are limited in that way creatively. So it does give you
Hmm.
a cap of what you can do.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of what made me like 3 years ago kind of start focusing more on hip hop production again. Because I've been playing guitar in a band for the last like 2 years.
What's the name of your band?
Well, at that point, I was in a band called Zen Marino, and then I was in a band called Middle Relief, and now I'm in a band called Brewing Company.
Okay.
Um, but I feel like I had just kind of gotten tired of like the limitations of guitar and the tones you can get, and I just wanted to do some more, I don't know, out there
No,
sounding
I
stuff.
respect that actually. Like that's why I got more into the electronic side of things when I was in a band. I didn't want to be limited to like just distortion or a phaser or a chorus pedal. You know, I wanted something that had like granular synthesis, some kind of like cutting edge effect, which you don't hear as much on guitar, which you can use it, but it's just more common in other genres that are willing to go further with experimental sounds.
Hmm. And you got to buy a whole pedal to do
Oh
like
yeah.
I've played with a bunch of great pedals at Guitar Center, but when you think about like, okay, I'm going to spend how much on this pedal? How many times am I going to be able to practically use this in a song? Like maybe once in like a bridge part, like very briefly. Where if you have a DAW, you can open up anything and just start experimenting right away, and like you're pretty much it's limitless.
What's your DAW of choice?
Logic Pro.
Logic? And
Yeah.
you use that mostly in your sessions?
Yes, in sessions, and it's what I use to make beats at home. I was doing the Pro Tools thing for a while, like when I was, because that's what I learned in college. So like when I was recording bands, I was doing Pro Tools, and I like it. Like when it cooperates, it's a great tool, but it's just not like it doesn't like give you it doesn't make you want to create. At least to me, like I don't know, you can't make a beat in Pro Tools.
It's been difficult whenever I was using Pro Tools in school. I kind of just went right back to Ableton and Logic afterwards because it's more streamlined.
Yeah, no, totally. Like trying to use MIDI in Pro Tools is like you're wasting your time, in my opinion. I have never had success.
Name some artists that you have worked with when you've been doing sessions at Mpower.
Yeah, sure. A bunch of people. There's so many people I could mention. But yeah, I guess some people who are coming to mind real quick because they've got some music coming out or stuff that's been released. Lordwick is one. He's got an album
Okay.
or a mixtape of some sort. Whatever he wants to call it. I guess an EP is what he's calling it. So
A body of work.
sorry, Quincy. I'll call it an EP. Yeah, a body of work coming out soon. King Trippy. We've been working on his album. I guess mixtape again. Pretty much done at this point. So
Where do you
that's
think
exciting.
the line is when it becomes a mixtape versus an album?
See, that's funny to me because in my head, I mean, not so much anymore, but like when I was first introduced to like the mixtape concept, it was like Lil Wayne doing bars on other people's beats.
Exactly. When it was kind of just like a type beat or like just a free beat.
Or even like, like No Ceilings, like those were all beats that other people had put out, and he was just taking the beats and like putting his own spin on them. And I feel like that's not necessarily what a mixtape is. It's just kind of what I associated it with for a while.
Right.
But I guess it's more of like an underlying, like something that ties a theme of the album together.
So I mean, if you listen to like early Tyler the Creator, he has like Gucci Mane like instrumentals like Lemonade.
Oh,
and he
yeah.
called it Orange,
Orange
Juice.
Juice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
that's
know what's
great.
up. So yeah, like, you are right because they could be off of an album like previously released by another artist. So I get exactly what you're talking about. Now, when it comes to these artists that you mentioned, what is it that you look for when you're seeing like talent that you want to collaborate with?
I think attitude really is the most important thing. You gotta like be dedicated, but you gotta be in it for the right reasons
Mhm.
too. Like you can't
Like a
just
vision?
be trying to make, yeah, you can't be like, or you shouldn't at least be trying to like make a quick buck. Like, yeah, let me blow up real quick on SoundCloud. Like that's not,
I think it kind of boils down to surface level goals. So I know exactly where you're coming from.
yeah. And like, other than that, like, I want to be able to build a relationship with the person. Like, I want to be able to, at the end of the session, like, or at the beginning of a session, if we're not talking about music, we can just kind of, talk about something else for a little bit. Like, we just get along. Like, I'm trying to build a relationship with someone. So somebody I can actually get along with and vibe with. I think, like you said, kind of the vision, like, you should have your own, you should be your own artist, have your own identity. Obviously you could take influences from, whoever you might be into, but don't just try to copy whatever is the cool sound right now.
Just
like,
because like people would like it because based on like their perception of the person you're trying to copy.
yeah, like, be true to who you are. Don't be trying to fool anybody. Like people can see right through that most of the time. Like be genuine and just have a good attitude about it. And like, yeah, I'll probably want to work with you.
So what advice would you give for other aspiring producers or musicians who are just getting like their foot in the door?
So this is something that I wasn't really doing that much of. I had been doing more of it like when I was in college because I had a little bit more of a community of like musicians around me. But just meet as many people as you possibly can.
Just build connection.
Build connections. And that doesn't have to be like music industry folks, just like people you know who are rappers or people you know who make beats. Like they could probably teach you something, or like they might like your music, they tell a friend about it, and then now you got a new fan. Like
Exactly.
not even, yeah, it's just all about knowing people. Like, because especially in the last year, like during the pandemic, I was just like sitting in my bedroom making music. And like I even started making, rather than make beats that like I would see an artist on, I'm like, all right, let me try to make more like standalone music, like I guess still beats, but like stuff that's like, interesting enough on its own. Cause I was just like sitting alone in my room and like I
Like
didn't know
stuff
what to do with
that
it.
like intrigued you. Basically, you were kind of like making music more for your own interest.
Exactly. Something I could make and be done with and like listen to it and like, yeah, this like feels finished. But then came here and I started working here, and
And how
I've
long
just
ago was
been,
that?
I want to say November of last year. So
2020.
like coming up on a year almost. Yeah. But hands down, like my favorite thing about being here is just the people that I get to meet and the people that I get to work with. Yeah, it's just been amazing.
That's cool, man. And did you go to school for audio as well?
I did. Yeah. Yeah, that was I guess like when I was in high school and like I was talking about like recording the like guitar based stuff, doing that is kind of what made me like really fall in love with doing it. And when I was deciding like, okay, I'm a senior, let me figure out what I'm going to study in
So you
school.
didn't even consider like university. You went straight into like the technical like school for audio engineering.
Well, I went to Elon, which is like I guess a liberal arts university.
I actually know Elon too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they like it had a good program, but I wanted the college experience. So I wanted to be on a
Yeah.
campus and I even feel like halfway through college I was kind of like I should have just gotten an apprenticeship or something. Like I should have just gone and worked at a studio every day for 2 years and like I would know what I'm doing by the end of that.
So you wanted like
But
more of the practical experience, like hands-on.
yeah, I mean, most of what I learned in school wasn't in a classroom anyway. Like I did a few internships, but I learned most of what I know about engineering, or at least at that point, just from recording my band. Like I want to know how to do this. All right, let me look it up, and experimenting and figuring stuff out that way.
Right. When I was in school, I know exactly what you're talking about with like the lack of like tangible hands-on experience
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of what we did was just like videos. And some people just learn differently. And I know exactly where you're coming from with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're in a class with 15 people. Like not everybody's going to get a chance to get on the board and really like have the amount of time that you need to understand that is not going to happen in 3 hours a week in a classroom. Like, nah, I don't know. It's a great start, but you got to put in the effort on your own,
And a refresher, Elon was in Elon, North Carolina, right?
Yes, it is in Elon, North
How long
Carolina.
ago did you like come back to Jersey?
I came back to Jersey, so I graduated in 2017, and I moved back home to Jersey.
How would you feel about the two different states' music experiences, like live performances?
So again, I didn't really get that in touch with like the New Jersey music scene once I got back. I don't know, like I was still in a band, but we weren't playing shows. So it's kind of hard for me to say like what the music scene in Jersey is like. Now I have a better understanding because I've met a lot of artists
Right, like you're living.
who are involved in it. Yeah, and I'm like, we're involved in it. But that was like my favorite thing about being in a band probably when I was in college is, going out to shows in like somewhere 30 minutes away, and then you are playing with 3 other bands that are all from like different neighboring cities, and it all comes together and it's like a community of musicians and everything. And that was just like,
Becomes more of an ecosystem at that point.
yeah. And I don't know, it was really cool. I had never been a part of anything like that before. And Elon, like even in the music community, like I don't know, it just wasn't the same. Really, there wasn't as many opportunities, I guess, just to perform and to have shows like with the band. So I don't know, it's tough to compare, and even now, like because shows aren't like really back yet, like they're
Yeah, there's
starting
like
to come back, but
there's
not
progress,
really. Yeah,
but
Yeah, but not like in full force yet. So it's hard to say. And like, I don't know. Even recently, I've been going to more shows. Not recently, but the last few years. Like in New York, the New Jersey, and I feel like it's tough to really pinpoint like the New York scene because there's so much going on. And
Any venues you like specifically?
um, honestly, off the top of my head, I'm really bad at names of
That's
things
okay. That's
like
okay.
this. Yeah, I don't know. I go out to Brooklyn. I feel like most of the time when I'm seeing shows.
Cool. I gotta
But
explore
yeah,
there more too. So
yeah. I'm hoping to the next few months. You know, I got a few shows lined up, so
nice. And that's
get
with
out to.
Brewing Company, right?
Well, hopefully we'll be playing in Brooklyn. Literally heard today. I got somebody hit me up about playing a show, so that would be great. And this is kind of like what we need to get us back into it. You know, we've just kind of been sitting around talking about making music again, but if we have a show, we have to practice, right? Like, so.
Yeah, I mean, like even if it takes like 5 practices for one song, that's how we did it. And like just when we were tight and like knew how to like perform it without like even with our eyes closed, that's when we knew we were ready. So it just whatever gets you like prepared.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you know, it's different because I feel like I'm like out of that zone now where like at a certain time I was very into like all right, like having a more like more of a practice regimen when I was consistently like making music, writing songs or practicing with another group of people. So I'm sure once we get back into it, it'll be
Oh yeah,
great again. Yeah.
like learning a bike. Once you like learn, you can't not know it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure it'll just be like I'll realize how much I missed it, and you know, I'll just want to keep grinding as much as possible.
Probably just rekindle that flame.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me about what is it that drives you? What gives you the motivation in the morning to say, I'm putting this time towards this goal? Like, what is it about your music or your long term plan that pushes you forward?
Well, really, it's just like, what else would I rather be doing with myself?
What you enjoy, right?
Yeah, I enjoy it. It's, you know, I honestly, it even if I don't, you know, even if nobody hears it, like I still need to like accomplish something every day. Like if I'm sitting at home and some days I will just sit there and I'll like start 3 beats and none of them really pan out, and at the end of that I'm just like, I'm just not in the zone anymore, and then I'm just like damn, this day is like kind of busted now. Like I didn't get anything done. Like it's it's like a love, but it's also like a sense of just a sense of accomplishment. When I make something great, it's like, wow, like it just kind of brings you back.
It's definitely one of those things also where I feel like you could always do more, you know?
Yeah, no, you can always do more. And like, yeah, like you don't know. There's been times where I'm like, oh man, it's late. I probably shouldn't start something new. All right, let me just sit down for like
Because
five
when you're
minutes. And
passionate
then,
about it, it's insatiable. It's never enough.
yeah, but like the thing, there's always the next beat. Like don't stop that day because you just tried to make 3 beats and none of them panned out. Like you don't like any of them. That's fine. Take a little break, but don't end your beat making career for that.
Facts.
Like there's always the next beat. You know, there's yeah, like I was just gonna say earlier, like there's been times where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't start something, and then I do, and it's the best thing I've made in like months. You know, like it's still inside of you somewhere. Like
That
sometimes it just takes a little bit more work to get it
preach,
out.
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, any other pieces of advice you'd like to give to the audience before we boost?
Uh, I don't just keep grinding, keep making music, listen to as much music as you can, find what you love, and get it out there because other people are gonna love it too.
Amen, man. Well, Kevin, solid piece of advice. Appreciate you coming out this week.
Thank you for having me. It was
Dude,
fun.
anytime. If you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe. And again, we'll see you next week. Take care.